In this video, I'm going to introduce you to lists. Lists are versatile and widely used in Python due to their flexibility and ability to hold different types of data. They are useful for storing collections of related items, iterating over elements, and implementing various algorithms and data structures. Some of the key features of lists are that they are ordered, meaning that the order of elements is preserved and predictable. They are indexed, which means you can access each element by its index starting at 0. You can use slicing on lists to extract a subset of the list. They're dynamic, meaning that the list can grow and shrink as necessary. They contain heterogeneous elements, which is just a fancy way of saying that you can put different data types inside a list. So you can have strings, integers, floats, or any other object in a list. And they are mutable, meaning that you can add elements, remove elements, or modify the elements that are inside a list. Over here on the right side of the slide here, you'll see some of the common list methods. Append adds an element to the end of the list. Insert adds an element at a specified index. Remove removes a specified value from the list. Pop removes and returns an element. Sort sorts a list, and you can either sort it in ascending or descending. Reverse reverses the elements in a list. Clear removes all elements from the list. Extend adds the contents of an iterable to the list. Count counts the number of occurrences of a specified value. And index returns the first index of a value. And if we jump into the development environment, we can take a look at creating a list and using a couple of the methods to add elements to the list. There are two ways to create a list. The first way I'm going to show you is by using a pair of square brackets. And then inside the square brackets, you would pass the elements that you want to be in your list separated by commas. So if I wanted to pass in the string values cat and dog, I would separate them by a comma. And if I run this, we will get an output down here of a list containing the elements cat and dog. The other way to create a list is by using the built-in list function. And if I hover over this, it says that if no argument is given, the constructor creates a new empty list. So if I run this here, we'll get the output down here of an empty pair of square brackets. Now the argument that goes into a list function is an iterable, meaning objects such as strings, list, tuples, sets, anything that can be iterated over. So if I try to use the list constructor to create a list, and let's say I want to pass in the single element of cat, when I run this, it's not going to pass in the single element cat into the list. It's going to iterate over this string and take the individual character elements. So when I run this, we'll get the list down here of CAT instead of just cat. So to correctly pass in a list where if you just wanted a single element inside the list constructor, you could just close it in square brackets, and now the constructor will see this as a list containing the single element cat and create our list with just one element correctly. I'm just going to change this list function back to being a pair of square brackets, and I'm also going to add the element dog to it. Now, if I wanted to add an element to the end of this list, I would use the append method. I would type my variable name for my list, or you could just use the list directly. And then I would do dot for the dot notation and append. And then in parentheses, I would put the object that I want to append. And if I hover over here, it says it takes one object and it appends the object to the end of the list. So, and this could be any object. Lists can handle different data types. So if I pass in the integer value 1 and run that, we'll see that my list now contains cat, dog, and the integer 1. But just to keep it simple, I'm going to pass in more string values of animals. So I have cat, dog, and cow now. And I'm going to go ahead and move cow up into my list. And if we wanted to insert an element somewhere that's not at the end of the list, we would use the insert method. So I'm going to replace append here with the insert method. And if I hover over this, it tells us that it takes an index, an object, and it inserts object before index. That means if I wanted to insert an object before dog, I would have to pass in the index value of dog and then whatever object I want. So dog is at index 1. So I would do 1, comma, and now I want to pass in duck. So now when I run this, it's going to insert duck right here between cat and dog, and it's going to output my list down here, cat, duck, dog, cow. Now let's say that you have another list. So I'll create a variable called myOtherList, and I will pass it the values horse, and I'll go ahead and add duck in here as well. If I wanted to combine these two lists, there's two ways I could do this. I can use the extend method, And if I hover over this, it says it extends list by appending elements from the iterable, and it takes an iterable as an argument. So just like with the list constructor that takes an iterable, if I passed in a single string value in here, it would separate the characters and extend this list with the characters, not the string itself. So I would have to make sure that I actually pass it a list or a tuple containing the strings that I want to extend the list with. So I would do the list that I want to extend, and then the dot notation, the extend method, and I would pass in the list that I want to extend it with. And if I run this, we'll see that we get cat, dog, cow, horse, and duck down here. Now you could also, instead of using the extend method, you could use the additional assignment operator by typing plus equals, passing in your other list or any iterable and running that. And then you also get your lists joined together that way.